I want some of your brownsugar. I want some of your brownsugar.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. This is Brownsugar Commentary, and I'm your girl, Kayla. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more videos about Black entertainment, Black womanhood, and whatever the heck else I feel like talking about this week. All right, let's get right into it. So today's video is going to be a bit different. Okay, it's going to be a bit different from what I usually do. I'm going to be talking about two films that are very near and dear to my heart that are currently getting a really bad rap, but I want to talk about them because they both deal with something that I've been dealing with for the past year, and they have become my comfort films in a way. And I never thought about it until now, like why I like going back to these movies as of recently. So hopefully y'all enjoy it in my analysis and my, observations while watching both of these films. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoy it. Okay, but the two films I'm talking about is Up and Finding Nemo. Both of these films I enjoyed a lot, as a child, as a, what is it, like I think a preteen when Up came out. And I've always liked these movies, but now I love them even more because, like I said, as an adult and with experience, I have grown to really appreciate them and what Pixar was able to do. Now, Pixar is still on my list for how they do Black folks in their movies. However, does not take away that Pixar has made some amazing, amazing films, and these two to me is top five. No debating, okay? But why I say these two movies get a bad rap is because I think both of them people like to talk about the hype surrounding them. And I mean, I understand it. There are plenty of things that we, hype and we get popular that really probably didn't deserve it. Like, when we get older and we look back at it and we're like, why the heck did we enjoy that so much? Or like, like I said, with Up, it, came out with critical acclaim, especially for its opening scene. And I really just don't like the fact that a lot of people reduce it to that opening scene and saying that it should have been a short film. And it's just like, did you watch the movie at all? Like, yes, the Up opening scene is probably the best opening scene that has ever existed in the history of any film, okay? I'm gonna go that far, okay? But at the same time, to just reduce it to just that little opening sequence, it's really just unfortunate that you kind of missed out on a great film. But I get it. Art is subjective. People are not always going to like something that you may like. There are plenty of Pixar films that people love, and I don't get the appeal. Wally. Sorry, something stuck in my throat. But I get it. You know what I mean? Like I can still, but I just wish that people, I think that with both Finding Nemo and Up, it's a movie that when you get older, and when things like when you're dealing with something like grief and loss, you will kind of better understand and appreciate these films like I have. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go about both of these movies and how both of these movies tackle grief and loss, and then give my closing thoughts and opinions. So first things first is we have Finding Nemo, and I mean, what a movie, right? This movie about a clownfish who basically goes on this epic journey after losing his son, who gets taken up by like a diver, and he goes throughout the whole ocean to find him with the help of the short-term memory of I forget what type of fish Dory is called, but the blue fish named Dory, okay? And like when it comes to Marlin as a character and how this movie grapples with grief and loss, I think that Marlin, went through a traumatic loss. Like he did not only just lose his wife and his kids, he lost them in a very like violent and tragic sudden way. And so it kind of makes sense as to why he's kind of neurotic and anxiety ridden. When the movie opens up, we see that Marlon and his wife are chilling and they chilling in their little whatever it's called, coral reef, I guess, right? And they're talking about their babies and making plans for the future. Everything seems all good and happy, and then all of a sudden a shadowy figure appears. I think it's like either a whale or a shark. I think it's a shark. And the shark comes and snatches up the wife and the kids, and I'm assuming eats them. And the only, baby that is left after all of this is who becomes Nemo. And it's just Nemo and Marlin. And, so right there, like I said, this is a sudden, violent death that happens. And while it probably doesn't feel that way because it's a fish, it is it's what happened, right? We literally saw murder. And so for Marlin, it helps set the stage for Marlin and how he moves as a character throughout this movie. Um, so now, when Nemo becomes older, we see that Marlin is a bit of a control freak, and that is kind of what PTSD and anxiety can do to you. You don't want that big, scary thing to happen to you again, and so you're going to try to avoid anything to trigger that from happening again. And so for Marlin, it is not going anywhere. It's not going too far from the reef. It is preventing Nemo from being anywhere close to harm's way because he does not want to lose another loved one or lose his own life. And so we see him with Nemo kind of prolonging him going to school year after year until Nemo finally is like, I want to go, like, please send me to school. And so when Nemo does go to school, right, because Marlin is now out of control, and he thinks that he's in control until like one of the parents tell him they go into the drop off, which is something that he was not aware of. He has to try to control the situation. And what does he do? He follows Nemo to the drop off and embarrasses him in front of his friends. And what ends up happening is because you're becoming so much of a control freak, well, one, you can't control other people, but especially if you're a parent, when you're trying to be so like you have this grip on your child's gonna want to break. Well, the one when they get freedom, they're gonna act out, and two, they're gonna resent you because you didn't let them live their life. And that's exactly what happens with Nemo. And his biggest fear ends up happening, right? Nemo gets snatched up to go who knows where. And so he has to confront his fear of the ocean because essentially that's what he's afraid of. He has not left where he has lived for how many years now, and he has to explore the deepest depths of the ocean to go and find his son. And of course, he is paired with this optimistic, fish, Dory, who does not care about a lot of things. She's kind of like, because she forgets. And I mean, and we later find out that Dory is literally Marlin's greatest fear realized because she is a lost child that never found her family until, of course, finding Dory. But technically, that's kind of where it's at. So I love that's the pairing that they gave, because you know that Pixar likes to put two people together that are very opposite from each other. But I think that Dory helped Marlin kind of come out of his shell and not be so controlling because, like I said, you can't control everything. Things are just going to happen. You have to deal with it. And that's why I love the whole just keep swimming thing, because it's like, yes, crappy stuff happens, but you have to keep it pushing because life's gonna happen anyway. So you gotta just keep doing it. And I mean, that's kind of what Finding Nemo is when it comes to grief and loss. It is kind of, especially for those who have lost loved ones in very tragic and sudden ways, it's easy to get wrapped up in staying in your own bubble and staying with yourself and not letting other people in, and just kind of being so caught up on the tragicness of the event that you just can't move forward. But you know, it is worth life is worth living, pretty much. Not to be cliche, but that's kind of what it is. And like I said, life is going to happen whether you want to be a part of it or not. And there's things you just can't control. So might as well just live your life. And I think that is what Marlin got to learn through his journey. He had to go through the whole entire ocean and meet all these, different sea creatures. He even had to meet sharks, his biggest fear, and show that like it's not so scary after all. And like I said, the world, in this sense, the ocean is a beautiful place, and it is worth exploring, and it is worth exploring with your son who is here. Like it is, one thing to harp on what could have been and what the life that you lost with your wife and your potential children, but you have a son here, and it is worth exploring the ocean with and living a full life with him. And so that's why I think that Finding Nemo is just a great movie to watch about grief and loss. And of course it's funny. Like, it's still funny years later. Like, fish are friends, not food, still hilarious. Okay, little squishy. Shark bait, hoo ha ha. Like, it's a great, funny movie. It's beautiful. Like, a movie made in 2003 that can still hold up. It's just the animation is just chef's kiss. Like, how y'all make the ocean look like that? Like, we knew we was in the ocean. Like, what? But yes, voice acting is amazing. I know Ellen is on everybody's, S list. But this was before we knew what she was. Okay. And she did a great job. But it was a good movie. And like I said, it's a great movie for those who, if you want to watch a movie about grief and loss. So moving right along, we have Up. And Up, boy, is a movie that's basically about an older man named Carl who recently lost his wonderful, beautiful wife, Ellie, who he basically spent every waking day with from the time he was a child until now. And, he loses her probably due to just old age. And, this whole time they had this goal of wanting to go to a place called Paradise Falls, right? They both kind of bonded over their love of adventure and their admiration for an explorer. And first name, I know his last name is like Months. Yeah. But there's this explorer guy, and and how he went to Paradise Falls, and so they always had this goal of wanting to go to this place, and then so they tried to save up, and it doesn't work out, and so like I said, they get older, and finally they have the time and the money to go, but Ellie unfortunately passes away. And so now Carl's kind of left all by himself. He has really no one except for his wife. They were unable to conceive any children, and they never adopted. So it's just Carl by himself. And he's pretty grumpy in the movie and for the most part of the movie, because he just lost his wife. But he meets a young boy named Russell who's energetic, and he's a scout, and he wants to help him. And, he has to earn like the assisting the elderly badge. And the two of them ended up going on this unlikely adventure to Paradise Falls, where, Carl learns a lot about himself, about Ellie, and about letting go. And so this movie, different from Finding Nemo, is one, while it deals with loss, it deals with kind of like regular loss, I should say. Like, where Finding Nemo, it was like sudden, quick, tragic loss. With Ellie, it was like she was older, and you kind of knew that this day was kind of coming. And Ellie and Carl got to live a full life together. We get more background into Carl because we see him from childhood all the way to an older man in this opening sequence. But I think, like I said, people reduce it to this beginning scene, or scenes. And I think the purpose of why it was there was to help show the beauty and show the depth of this relationship and how much he loved Ellie. I mean, like I said, they knew each other from little kids to adults, and they were literally each other's best friend in person. And so to lose a person like that, that has to be, not the best. And it shows why Carl is the way he is. And I think the biggest thing about this movie is the symbolism of the house. I think that Caro views the house extension of her and her spirit and her essence, because I mean that's the place that they met. They built this house up together and renovated it, and they lived together in it and spent every day together there. And so there's so much memories in this house. And so now that she's gone, he wants to hold on to whatever bit left. And this house is kind of it for him. And so when his house is being, when it's being threatened because it's like the only house on this street that's being like gentrified or like, taken over by a construction company, he refuses to let it go. And I think the biggest thing is because in his mind, he believes that if he lets this house go, he lets Ellie go. And he literally cannot move on. He literally spends every day in his house. He does not leave his house. He sits around his porch every day and does nothing. He does not have any friends. He doesn't have a dog. He has nothing. And so this movie movie, like I said, the biggest thing I feel like is talking about letting go. Not letting go necessarily of the person, but letting go kind of the shackles of grief, because grief can really weigh you down to the point where you kind of just can't move, can't do anything, and it's hard to move on because sometimes you feel guilty to move on when you lose someone, because you feel like, damn, like they should be here living life with me. And I think that's where Carl was with it. And I think that with the balloons, and like I said, it shows how much this man could not let go of this house. Like, he literally got billions of balloons to uproot his house and take it all the way to South America. And even throughout the film, when he has to take the house from one end to the other to get to he has to literally hold this house in his hands. And I think that is, while it feels weightless because it's a cartoon and like there's all these balloons, but like imagine carrying a house. But I feel like sometimes living with grief, that's how it is. Like, you're just carrying it around with you every single place that you go. And I think one of the most powerful things about this movie, which is once again why I don't understand how people cannot see the beauty of this movie, is the climax of the film where Carl is fighting with the adventurer dude, and he has to choose between saving his house and saving Russell, and he chooses to save Russell and literally lets the house go and it floats away. And I think that that is like, wow, right? Because if you notice at that point, Carl is not I'm no longer trying to save this house anymore, because like I said, he was willing to do all these things to preserve this house, and he was able to let the house physically go. And like I said, you can see that he became much more lighter as a character. He was much more concerned about this new person in his life, Russell, and even about Doug and Kevin and all those people. And when he did that, he was finally able to, feel better, right? He got to get this surrogate kind of grandson in Russell. He gets a dog, a whole bunch of dogs. And, he gets to finally live his life post Ellie, not forgetting her, but living for her, which I love the fact that she wrote in the little adventurer book, go have some adventures of your own. And he was able to, once again, this character who never left their house for nothing, got to explore South America in its fullness. And I think that that is super powerful and amazing. And it kind of serves as a reminder, once again, that just because you lose someone does not mean that life has to stop. You can live for them rather than feeling guilty, than living and, you're still here and they're not, or letting the loss of them kind of take over and make you, not want to do anything. And so that's why I love Up, and I think it's brilliant. I mean, who does not love the scoring of this film? Once again, gorgeous animation and just amazing characters and memorable moments. I love that squirrel part, like when the dogs do that. Like, I love the dogs, I love Russell. I love all of it. I think this movie is brilliant. And like I said, once again, I have never seen any live action movie that covers grief and loss the way that this movie does. But like I said, both Carl and Marlin both go through loss, and they both kind of let that loss take over their entire life, and they don't live and they don't move on, because for Marlin it's more from a PTSD anxiety standpoint, and for Carl it's kind of like, because the grief is just too much to handle, and just you know feeling guilty. But both of them get to learn to live at the end of the day, and letting other people in and not letting the grief consume them. And it's just two really dope and beautiful journeys that we get to witness through these two amazing, iconic, beautiful films. And so I bring these two films up because I am reaching the 1 year anniversary, so to speak, of my father's passing. Unfortunately, he passed away, last year around this time. And so for that, it's been hard, very, very hard, because he was not old, and he died very tragically and suddenly. And so I can empathize and understand about Marlon, and like I said, I can also understand about Carl, wanting to hold on to all the momentums that I can of him, and like I said, feeling guilty of moving on, because I feel like moving on will be forgetting him in a sense. Um, but like I said, life is here to be lived, and you can't sit here trying to be consumed in grief. And like, grief sucks. You know, every day is different. Just there's the 7 steps of grief, but it doesn't mean when you get to acceptance that you completely are, over it and you're just completely healed, right? There are days you're on the acceptance stage, and then you go right to depression the next day, or you go back to denial. Like, it's really a hard thing, and it's a crazy situation to deal with. But like I said, if you've ever, dealt with a loss or whatever, or, dealt with grief, these 2 movies are just 2 ones you can go back to. And while it will put you in the feels, it will still, there's still funny parts, and there's still good parts and enjoyable parts. And I love these movies so much, especially now. I appreciate them more as an adult, having gone through a loss and a grief, going through grief currently. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Like I said, I know it's a bit different from my usual content because I mostly focus on, Black entertainment and Black culture type things, but I think that I love talking about movies and TV shows and analyzing them, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So hopefully you guys, like it and enjoy it. But let me know what you guys think about Up and Finding Nemo. Do you guys love it? Do you think they're overhyped? What are some of your other favorite Pixar films? Me and my brother are going to soon start a series where we rank a bunch of things, and Pixar is definitely going to be one of them, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, let me know your favorite Pixar films. Do you love Up? Do you love Finding Nemo? What do you guys think about how these 2 movies represent grief and loss? Comments, all that good stuff below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will definitely see y'all in my next video. Peace out, y'all.